Hey guys, this is Zach from Orem. My apologies for not being there tonight. I had something come up just a couple days ago that I agreed to, and then boxes didn't cross in my brain. And I forgot that I also have this presentation due tonight. So Matt was really nice and let me record my presentation and have someone, hopefully that's there tonight, be able to press play for me. So thank you, Matt, and thank you to whoever's pressing play. The program that I'm evaluating, or the program evaluation that I'm critiquing, the program was the Texas Principal Excellence Program, or the TxPEP, and it was a state legislature funded principal improvement program, administrator improvement program. And I'll get a little bit more into the overview of the program, but the basic idea was that if they could improve the administrative skills of school principals, that would then boost both school level and student level achievement. So I'll kind of overview the program, walk through my critique of it, and then if there are any questions at the end, Tara would love to answer them. So. Before we start, though, or I guess before I get into the official overview, I was curious about just the underlying theory of this program, that an administratively successful or a principal with great administrative skills can foster both school level and student level achievement. And so I kind of went on the hunt for it, and I found the perfect example. I think kind of the ideal administrator that many of us that are in public education strive to be. And so I thought we'd start here with this.
New YouTube Red Family plans. No.
Minus the ad.
Matilda had always wanted to go to school because she loved to learn. She tried to imagine what her new school would be like. Go ahead. She pictured a lovely building surrounded by trees and flowers and swings. Well, there was a building and children. So regardless of what Crunchum Hall looked like, she was happy to be there. After all, any school is better than no school at all, isn't it?
You, detention. You're too small. Grow up quicker. Heads up, shoulders back, stomachs in, stand up straight.
Hey, sorry.
Detention for you.
That's okay. It's much better than being out there. Is that my teacher? No, that's the principal, Miss Trunchbull. You've got to be kidding.
You squirts better skedaddle. I'm not kidding. The Trunchbull likes to snap a whip in there to see who's trying to hide.
Stomach in. Change those socks to pink.
I'm Matilda. Lavender.
I'm Hortensia.
Hi. She doesn't really hit children with that riding crop, does she?
No, it's mostly for scare. What she does is worse. Like yesterday, the second grade, the Trunchbull makes a weekly visit to every classroom to show the teachers a thing or two about handling kids. And Julius Routwinkle ate 2 M&Ms during her lesson.
And she caught him?
Of course.
Was Julius okay?
After being thrown out the window? Of course he wasn't okay. He lived, if that's what you mean.
The Trunchbull used to be in the Olympics. Shot put, javelin, hammer throw.
The hammer throws her specialty.
So she does this all the time?
It's better than being put in the chokey.
Choky?
Yeah, the chokey. It's a tall, narrow hole in a wall behind a door. You have to stand in a drippy pipe with jagged edges, and the walls are broken glass and nails sticking out.
Festering ball of pus!
She puts kids in there?
I've been in twice. Sometimes she leaves you in there all day.
But didn't you tell your parents?
They didn't believe me. I mean, would your parents believe it?
60 lines after school. I must obey Miss Trunchbull.
No.
Out of my way.
Here she comes.
So, yeah, just a really great example of administrative prowess. Principal who really takes her responsibility seriously, is concerned about the growth and success of the children that she serves, and has really created a great environment for learning. So that's kind of the ideal. So the TxPEP program, this is just kind of a little bit of an overview. As I said, it was funded by the state legislature. They put $3.6 million into this, and it's a pretty audacious program. The idea was to gather principals from academically underperforming schools and then oblige them to enroll in this program, which would teach these principals through a series of workshops and seminars, business management principles. And the outcomes, or the desired outcomes, were first and foremost an increase in the principal's leadership skills, and then school level improvement, specifically an improved teacher retention rate, and then student level improvements with higher academic achievement on test scores, and then higher graduation rates. And so that's the idea of the program. And like I said, it's a pretty lofty ideal. Not that this is necessarily the place of the evaluation report, but there wasn't any stated research to support this theory. And I think you'd probably have a hard time finding something that's that widespread. I've seen some studies, I've looked at some studies that show that certain aspects of teacher professional development, of course, can correlate with teacher retention, and I've seen a couple that have correlated teacher professional development with a couple of areas of student, not achievement, but participation in class. But to stretch that in both directions, to say not just teachers, but principals improvement, leading to not just participation in class, but actual academic success and graduation. It's kind of a lofty idea. So, but that's the overview of the program. This page is very busy, but I tried to combine everything from this report onto one page. The evaluation that this group did was really well done, in my humble and not so informed opinion. It was very concise. It was very appropriately cautious, and I think they asked a lot of the right questions. So you can see on the left-hand side there a list of formative questions, from simple ones like who participated in TxPEP to a little bit more involved ones. For example, is the program useful in helping participants develop leadership and knowledge skills? Do participants incorporate what they learn into their day-to-day work in schools? And then summative questions. What was the impact of the TxPEP on participants' leadership abilities? What was the impact of principals' participation on school-level factors such as teacher retention? The last question I thought was interesting: does a change in principal leadership ability lead to a change in any school-level factors that then lead to a change in student achievement or other student outcomes such as student attendance rates? It's a very big question. In the report, they were very specific in outlining how they were going to gather data for the specific questions that they had. And so you can see that middle column kind of outlines the data. A couple of key points of data were, of course, statistical data from attendance reporting software, and then a lot of qualitative data from surveys. Participants were asked to complete a daily checklist log where they would record kind of more or less a journal of what they did that day in their administration and their work. and how that reflected what they were learning in the program. And then there was an end of interim survey and then an end of term survey, both, or an end of year survey, both of the principals and then of the teachers. One of the biggest drawbacks of the evaluation was that administrative data on, for example, teacher retention, student achievement, on the Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, that would lend answers to a lot of those summative questions was not available at the time this report was completed. They wanted the report done somewhat timely at the end of year one of the program so that they could then modify and change beginning year two. But by the time the report was due, the administrative data wasn't available. And so a lot of those summative questions actually went unanswered in this report. But on the right-hand side, then, there are some of the salient findings. Attendance was high, though it dropped throughout the program. The program was implemented with a high quality of fidelity, meaning it went the way they wanted it to go. However, a lot of the limitations were that principals didn't find it especially relevant. The gap between business leadership and educational leadership was too wide, and they didn't see the connection a lot of times, which is one of the alterations that was made in the program going into year two, is that they rethought a lot of the workshops and kind of mapped out some of the ways that those business management principles would translate into educational leadership. The impact was positive, though again the evaluation report here was really cautious, appropriately so. It was all self-report data, so principals reported much higher feelings of administrative prowess, and teachers reported a higher degree of administrative skills in their administrators as well. But it's all reporting data. Like I said, there was no end of year quantitative summative data on student achievements or on retention for them to make any conclusions there. And the report was again cautious and didn't make those claims either. One of the limitations they mentioned is that there was a low response rate to the surveys. And one thing I really appreciated in the report was there were a lot of alternate explanations. So for example, one of the salient findings was that teachers reported higher degrees of administrative skill in their administrators. But the report acknowledges that that could also be due to maybe it's just that the administrators were more enthusiastic in their work than they were before because they're involved in this program. So not necessarily that the program contributed to that increase in administrative skills. Any program would have worked. They were just excited about learning and growing, and that contributed to success, which I think is a pretty valid alternate explanation. The bottom there's some adjustments they decided to make for year two: more flexibility, more coaching and ongoing support. The big one was to focus more on relevance, and then to find a way to more closely monitor program participation. As it says up at the top, 84% of participants attended at the beginning, but at the end, only 28% had completed all of the required steps. There were 5 workshops and a couple of seminars, and then some optional online ones that were very poorly attended. Less than 20% attended those. So, as far as a critique, I thought, as I said, the evaluation was done pretty well. I thought they asked manageable questions, both formative and summative. They spelled out how they were going to get the data to answer those questions. And again, I really appreciated that they reported only what they could safely conclude from the data. They didn't overextend their findings, were very cautious. So a lot of positives. The one kind of glaring box that left was unchecked, besides the fact that there wasn't administrative data at the end, quantitative data for those summative questions, kind of the big box left unchecked was there was no logic model. And in this case, I think it actually really hurt the report because it seems that, again, as I mentioned, this is a really lofty idea, and just having a logic model illustrated would have helped, I think, stakeholders take a step back and realize how big of a program they were funding. I'm sure anyone that's had any, and I don't have much of this, but anyone that's worked with any kind of high-level interventions would probably roll their eyes at this, because it seems like something that gets thrown around a lot of, we've got this money from the legislature to throw at this program that's going to change everything, and it's so big and so broad that it's just kind of throwing money at a giant-sized dartboard and hoping that it sticks. So one of the things I did in my evaluation was I went back and tried to recreate a logic model, just a really simple one with inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. And so here's my poor version of a logic model, but the inputs there, there's an intro summit meeting, workshops, webinars, optional webinars. Those are the things that go into the program that participants are required to put into the program. Principals attend 2 summits, 3 workshops, 5 webinars. They learn business administration skills, network with other principals, practice administration skills with their teachers. And then the outputs where they would gather data, of course, the big one was participation reporting, the participants reporting themselves. There were interviews and surveys and focus groups with participants as well. And then, like I said, there was a hope to get teacher retention rates and student level performance indicators that weren't available. The outcomes there, student achievement rates, increased graduation rates, and improved teacher retention rates. And so I kind of think if you were to flesh this out, I don't know, if a stakeholder, and if I were there, Matt, I'd ask this question. I think I've asked it a couple of times, but it seems like if I were this program evaluator and I'm going through this and I'm showing them this logic model, maybe even before we start gathering data, I don't know, I'd be what's my place in asking them the question of, do you realize how big of a thing this is that you're asking? You're asking principals to attend 5 meetings, or 10 meetings, sorry. No, just 5, because the 5 webinars were optional. So 5 meetings, 2 summits and 3 workshops. And you are expecting attendance at those 5 meetings to lead to higher student achievement, higher graduation rates, and higher teacher retention. Because that logically just doesn't seem to spell out. So I don't know if that's a question that can be thrown around at the end of this recording, but I'd be really curious to know. That's kind of the gist, though, of my critique. A very specific, cautious, very efficiently reported evaluation report. The report was only 8 pages long, a lot of tables and helpful diagrams. And then just the 2 glaring problems of the logic model missing and the administrative level, the student level data there at the end. So that's the program. Go ahead and ask questions. If you have any other questions, you can email me. Or put it on one of the discussion boards or something, and I can respond to it if there's any other questions. And Matt, if I missed something, then follow up with me and let me know if I missed something, and hopefully this works. So thanks, guys.